Hello lovelies, I'm Christina and today I'm giving you my June wrap-up. This is coming in a little bit late, as I mentioned in my last vlog. Trying to edit on my old MacBook, which is, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, was a complete nightmare. It was just hopeless. My Final Cut just kept on freezing and then shut down, so I had to turn it off and on again every time that happened, and to edit just a small vlog would take me hours. So the videos had to take a break because we were on a break. But I'm back, we're home, and now I'm gonna show you the books that I read in the month of June. So the first book that I read in the month of June was Carrie by Stephen King. Most of you probably know this story already. It is a story about Carrie, who is bullied a lot by her classmates. She has this gift where she can move stuff around and make things happen. And there's certain events that spiral out of control and shit hits the fan. But yes, I think because I've watched the old movie adaptation long before I read the book, that kind of ruined my experience with the book. I still really enjoyed the writing. I thought it was a good story, but the wow factor and the oh my god, what's gonna happen now was kind of lost. So I think that's the reason why it became a 3.5 experience instead of a higher rating for me. And if you are wondering why I'm not saying stars and showing you teacups instead, that's because that's the same rating system that I have on my blog when I review books. So to kind of get some consistency, I want to use the same thing here as I do over there. The next book was an audiobook, and that was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides? I'm probably butchering that all over the place. But this is a psychological thriller about a woman named Alicia Berenson, who is seemingly living the perfect life. And then she is found one day having shot her husband 5 times in the face. And we then jump back and forth between her diary from back then and what happened around that time, and the thoughts from her psychotherapist, Theo Faber, and him trying to help her and trying to make her talk again, because she's been silent ever since that day where her husband was shot. I've heard amazing things about The Silent Patient. I think maybe I went into it with a bit too high expectations. That being said, I really did enjoy it. It was very interesting, very well written. There are some really good twists and turns in this story that I really enjoyed. I kind of saw some of it coming, but wow, really, really well written psychological thriller, and I ended up giving that a 4 out of 5. Next up, we have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this one, and I feel like everyone has been reading this except for me, so I'm late to the party. It is the story about a virus, so hitting really close to home with everything that we're going through with COVID-19 at the moment, but an extremely deadly virus spreads around the world and it is extremely fatal. So we jump back and forth in time between when that virus hits and starts to spread, and to a sort of post-apocalyptic setting later on where we follow a traveling theater that puts on Shakespeare shows. I really did enjoy this. I was expecting to be moved a bit more than I did, although I thought the premise of the story was really interesting. I really liked the characters and the dynamic between them, and the jumping back and forth in time as well was really interesting, but it didn't move me as much as I expected it to. That being said, really did enjoy it, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5. Next up, we have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This one is one that has also been going around BookTube a lot in the last... when did it come out? 2017. So it's been around a while. I've seen it for a long time. I've had it on my shelf for maybe a year or so. I don't remember exactly when I bought it, but it's especially going around BookTube now because of the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's been going on. And I think that's great. It's a book that should be read. Even though it is fiction, it tells a very gripping and very true to life story that so many are going through right now. It is a story about Star, who witnesses first her best friend murdered at, I think they're aged about 10. And then at 16, Star is the only witness to the death of her friend Khalil, who is shot by a cop. And it is the story about how that affects her and the community that she lives in, and also how she battles wanting to tell her story and wanting to stay out of the spotlight. It's a really gripping story, it's a really important story, and one that I think everyone should read. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5. Next up, we have My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is a story about two sisters, Carrie and the younger sister, Ayoola. Ayoola has a tendency to end up in situations where she, in self-defense, kills her boyfriends. And one day she starts dating this doctor that her sister Carrie has been having a crush on for a really long time, and Carrie is really worried that she might end up killing off him as well. It is a story about these two sisters, how the one sister tried to clean up, literally, the mess after the murders that her sister commits. And it's quite funny, quite dark, but really entertaining. I would have loved to get to know more about this serial killer sister, Ayoola. I think there's so much more to her story that I just would have loved to know. But yeah, it was a short, entertaining, dark and funny read. I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5. Next up, we have Pax by Sara Pennypacker. This one is illustrated by John Klassen. It is a story about Peter and Pax. Peter finds this fox cub who is abandoned, and he takes him in and they create this really special bond. And because of the war, we're not told throughout this book if it is the First World War or the Second World War or what's going on here, but because of a war, they are torn apart. His father tells Peter that he has to set Pax free, and he does so very unwillingly, and then he's sent away to his grandfather, I think it is. And then he regrets the decision of setting Pax free, and he worries that Pax might not survive out in the wild on his own. We see this story from Peter's perspective and from the fox, Pax's perspective, which was just such a brilliant way to go about it. It's such a cute story. The illustrations are beautiful. It was a story that really took me by surprise, and it made me cry. And I ended up giving it 4.5 out of 5. Next up is the book that I picked up for the Blackathon, and it was recommended by Jessie over at Bowties and Books. And I'm having a hard time explaining this book, but it is the 5th season, the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. This was my first Jemisin book. Her writing is just extremely beautiful, and she makes these really intricate roles and characters that are so interesting. Like I said, I'm struggling to explain what this story is about, so I'm just going to read you the back. It says, "This is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift. Across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land long familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon, and where there is no mercy. It's brilliant. It was confusing at first for me, just because we are jumping back and forth between characters and different settings, and it took me a little while to get into this story and to really know what was going on. It's a very intricate world. It has really good LGBTQ plus representation in this, where you have different gender identities. You also have a polyamorous relationship going on in this book, which I don't see that often, and I really appreciate it. But it's so different, and it took me a bit of time to really get invested in this, but when I did, I was truly invested in it, and I'm really curious to see where this goes from here. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5. The last book that I read in the month of June was Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora, Neale, Hurston. This one was one that was recommended by April over at Getting Hygge With It as one of the books written by Black authors that she mentioned in her video. I'll link to it so you can go check that out. And before we get into this book, look at that cover. It's just, I'm in love with this cover and with these editions. They are what are they called? The Virago Modern Classics editions. I've actually ordered quite a few of these now in other classic stories that I haven't really heard of before, so I'm excited to see what I think of them when they arrive eventually sometime in the future. It takes forever to order books these days to Norway. It takes forever even if you order them from Norwegian bookstores, so we just have to be patient. It'll show up when it shows up. But yes, this is a story about Janie. Janie is caught kissing a boy when she is, how old is she? 16. When she is 16, she is caught kissing a boy, and her grandmother then sends her off to be married to this older man who owns a lot of property. And Janie quickly finds out that marriage is not the same thing as she envisioned love to be. We then follow Janie and the love and relationships that she experiences throughout her life. It's so beautifully written. The prose in this are just to die for. In my opinion, Their Eyes Were Watching God is a book that you should read slowly. You can't really devour it in one gulp and then really be able to appreciate the writing. Well, that's just my opinion. Maybe some can, but I wouldn't be able to. It's just so beautifully written, and I just needed to take my time with this. It's not a really long book, but it took me a while to get through it just because I wanted to really appreciate the writing, and to be able to do so, I had to read this slowly and really take it in. Such a beautiful experience. It is heartbreaking and it is heartwarming, but it's such a beautiful book and one that I would highly recommend. I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5. So there you have it. Those are the books that I read in the month of June. June was a really good reading month for me, and I'm hoping that July will be as well. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these and you have any thoughts. I would love to discuss them. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button and that bell button if you haven't already. And I will see you in my next video soon. Goodbye!